And we're live. Good to be with all of you here today. I have been traveling the countryside here, all the way from the southeastern part of Ireland up more towards outside Dublin. Anyway, it's good to be with you here. We got big news because Jasmine Crockett, I'm telling you, I mean, Texas may finally be rid of her. Can you imagine that? Wouldn't that be great? Like, to actually not have to have a representative. Leslie, if you're watching, I know that you're all for that one. Jasmine Crockett may actually find herself redistricted out of Texas. Is that a word? Well, now it is, okay? Gerrymandering coming back to bite them big time. Meanwhile, an anchor on CNN is completely stunning everybody. We're like, wait. Is he going to still have a job tomorrow? I mean, wow, wait till you hear this sound by actually admitting the truth. A CNN anchor. I mean, we got to take a moment to pause, everyone, right? You know, take a breath. Remember this moment in time. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has some choice words for Hillary Clinton. I have asked him previously, you know, Mr. President, like, why didn't you go after her? And he's like, you know, I didn't want to at the time, but now I'm all in. We got a big show live for you here today on the Trish Regan Show. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. And wow, we got to mark this moment in time because, hallelujah, CNN actually said something that was truthful. I don't know if this guy's going to be able to hang on to his job. I'm sure his colleagues are really just a little bit annoyed with him because he keeps dropping these truth bombs. But, you know, I got to give credit where credit is due. You got Harry Enton, ladies and gentlemen. Remember that name. He's the guy that does all the polling stuff, and he's been looking at all the information as it comes in real time. And he actually went out and admitted, okay, like I said, mark this historic moment because we don't know if it'll happen again, but mark it. He admitted this. Take a peek.
The Donald Trump administration is arguably the most influential this century and probably as well dating back a good portion of the last century as well. Love it, like it, lump it. Trump is remaking in the United States of America. Let's talk about tariffs first, right? There's all this talk that Donald Trump always chickens out when it comes to tariffs. No tacos for Trump. The effective tariff rate, get this. It's 18%, the highest since the FDR administration in the 1930s, up from, get this, just 2% last year. From just 2% last year, we're talking about a level, an effective tariff rate level, get this, 9 times as high this year than last year. But it's not just on tariffs, which of course Donald Trump ran on, in which you're seeing a tremendously influential presidency. What about immigration? Of course, Trump ran and has always run on a very hawkish immigration platform. Get this, 2025 net migration in the United States down at least 60% from last year. In fact, we may be heading for the first time in at least 50 years in which we have net negative migration into the United States. And last year, of course, in 2024, the net migration in the U.S. was 2.8 million. This year, we might be talking about negative net migration. My goodness gracious. Now, of course, this is part of a larger story, as I was mentioning. We're talking about immigration, net migration. We're talking about the effective tariff rate. But get this. How is Donald Trump doing it? Well, he is signing a ton of executive orders. Get this, 180, the most in a year since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Oh, my goodness, you have to go back to the first half of the 20th century, the last century. And to make a comparison, Joe Biden signed, get this, just 77 during his entire first year. And we're only a little bit in August so far. And Donald Trump making history with 180 executive orders signed so far this year. So that's why I said that in my mind, Donald Trump is the most influential president of this century and probably dating back a good portion of the last century. That is because he is remaking the country in terms of tariffs. He is remaking the country in terms of net migration, and he is remaking the country in terms of how much policy changes he's putting through in executive orders. As I said, it truly is history making. Love it, like it, or lump it.
I mean, Harry, hold on to your hat. Gosh almighty, what's going to happen to that guy? Did you hear that? Love it, lump it. What was that one? I mean, but he did say, look, he will be the most influential president in history. And those net migration numbers are staggering, right? And then you look at what's happened on the tariff front, on the economic front, really kind of just reinventing everything on the economic front. And what do we have? We got a market. Didn't I tell you to buy on Friday? Listen to me, 76research.com. Look at this. We got a market that's on a tear again today. So really, really good news to see there with the Dow up 1.3%, the S&P up 1.35%, the NASDAQ up nearly 2%. Quite a recovery after what we saw on Friday. People weren't so happy with the jobs report. But I'm telling you, by the way, that the whole other thing that we haven't talked about, I know he got rid of the woman who was in charge of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but I'm just going to say this. She didn't always have the best numbers. Even going back through Biden, like the numbers were really wacky. These numbers are always wacky. Actually, they've been like for the last 20 years, as long as I've been covering them, pretty darn wacky. And they get revision after revision after revision. But in her case, they were especially bad. And I'm not the only one saying this. I mean, aside from your politics, et cetera, she had kind of a history of bad numbers. But this is wild. So Harry Anton, again, I just got to hear that little bit in the beginning. Was it love it, lump it? I didn't quite get it. Did you guys? Let's take a peek.
The Donald Trump administration is arguably the most influential this century and probably as well dating back a good portion of the last century as well. Love it, like it, lump it. Trump is remaking in the United States of America. Let's talk about tariffs.
Okay, that's pretty good. Love it, like it, lump it. He is the most influential president we have had in generations. I mean, you've got to go back to FDR to see anything like it. And I got to give this guy credit. This isn't the first time he's kind of come out and stunned people. He came out recently when he was just talking about polling numbers saying, look, you guys may not buy it on the other side of the anchor desk, but here's where America is. Watch.
Particular point, the Democratic brand is in the basement. It is total and complete garbage in the mind of the American public. The Democratic Party's net favorable rating, record lows in all three. Wall Street Journal, 30 points underwater. CNN, 26 points underwater. Gallup, 26 points underwater. And that is being driven in large part by discontent within the Democratic base. The Democratic base wants something different. We'll ultimately end up seeing who they choose. It'll be quite the thing who ultimately gets the rose.
Yeah, this is fascinating to me because, again, this is CNN. And you know what CNN did? Ever since, you go all the way back to 2016, right? They've been the broken record, very, very, very anti-Trump, very anti-Trump. And then all of a sudden we're getting a glimpse of something else. And it has been questioning, like, what is going on? It's one thing with this guy because he's new on the scene. But then did you hear Jake Tapper the other day kind of push Nancy Pelosi in a direction that she didn't like very much? Watch.
Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
But I
and
wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
Whoa. I mean, again, this is like huge, right? For a CNN anchor to challenge the grand and mighty Nancy Pelosi. And she's like, hang on, I agreed to talk about this, that, and the other. What are you doing? Going out in left field and asking me about something that we haven't previously discussed. I'm telling you, the problem with all these Democrats is they go on to their little favorite networks, which they think are their favorite networks. I mean, good thing she's not on with Harry. He might actually ask her some really good questions. Like, why are you guys basically garbage right now? Why is it that Trump is going to become the most influential president perhaps in history, certainly in generations? I mean, my goodness gracious, he might actually stick some real ones to her. But the fact that she's getting real questions, it does suggest that CNN all of a sudden might actually be paying attention to what they should have been paying attention to all along, right? I mean, Brandon Carter has talked about this, has talked about this from the FCC recently, saying, all these networks, they were all out in left field, one after another. I mean, The View especially. And so now, consequently, they are in trouble. They're in trouble economically. They're in trouble in that their viewership, their base doesn't really trust them. And it's all coming back to haunt them in a rather significant way. Here's Brennan saying this about The View and about NBC, ABC, NBC. They've all got troubles. Watch.
Let's go to The View, shall we? Joy Behar yesterday said this.
First of all, who tried to overthrow the government on January 6th?
Wait, let me think. Who
was that again? That was not Obama. The thing about him is that he's so jealous of Obama because Obama is everything that he is not.
Yeah.
Trim.
Yeah.
Smart. Handsome.
Happily
married, and can sing Al Green's song, Let's Stay Together, better than Al Green.
Yeah.
And Trump cannot stand it. It's driving him crazy. Jealousy is not green is not a good color.
That from yesterday. Who knows what happens today? The White House chose to respond to that. And this is what they said. Joy Behar is an irrelevant loser suffering from a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome. It's no surprise that The View's ratings hit an all-time low last year. She should self-reflect on her own jealousy of President Trump's historic popularity before her show is the next to be pulled off air, end quote. Is The View now in the crosshairs of this administration?
Look, it's entirely possible that there's issues over there. I mean, again, stepping back, this broader dynamic, once President Trump has exposed these media gatekeepers and smashed this facade, there's a lot of consequences. And I think the consequences of that aren't quite finished. And look, The View's got a lot of challenges there. It wasn't that long ago, I think one episode, one show alone, they had to stop, interrupt the show, and read 4 separate legal notices to try to avoid legal liability. So I'm not surprised to hear people saying that their ratings are struggling.
Wow. Sir, where does this end then?
Look, I think we need a course correction. You know, it's time for America's legacy broadcasters to return to promoting the public interest. And just recently, Skydance, which is looking to acquire CBS, wrote letters to the FCC committing to serious change, to trying to root out bias, to putting in place an ombudsman that would address these issues, to returning to unbiased, trustworthy journalism.
It's going to be hard for them, though, because I'll tell you, like, the newsrooms are so biased in and of themselves. You walk into a newsroom, and by the way, I've worked in a lot of them, at CBS, at NBC. I was, a guest contributor over on ABC on Good Morning America. I worked at Bloomberg. Like, I've seen it all, right? I know how the sausage gets made. And for whatever reason, it attracts a lot of liberal people that come out of academia and have a very particular bias. So how are you going to populate these newsrooms with other kinds of folks? I mean, you can go raid Fox News maybe, or Newsmax, or maybe it's just also the reality that as we move forward in this new brave world, right? A lot of people are coming over here. Reminder, subscribe, share, like, comment here on the Trish Regan Show, here on YouTube. Come over here. They're coming over here and they're seeking out alternatives to that mainstream media bias. And so we've been able, myself and others right here, been able to offer a different point of view, one that I think, hopefully is always fair, does reflect my particular bias. And my bias is, let's just say, more right of center than it is left of center. Thank you very much, right? And I'm proud of that, and I tell you guys that. But I do try to make sure that you see it all, because sometimes seeing it all is part of the story. I mean, you can't really fully understand all aspects of the story until you see how crazy the other side gets. And believe me, they get crazy. So now they're in a situation where they've got to fight for their survival. Is that why CNN is allowing Harry Anton to get out there on the air and say all that he had said? Is that, well, I have no doubt he's a survivalist of sorts. Is that why Jake Tapper is suddenly taking on Nancy Pelosi? And shall we say, is survival the reason that Comcast cannot wait to get rid of one Rachel Maddow? I mean, I heard the earnings call last week. This was hysterical because, they're talking about how much revenue that they generated for Comcast, not from advertising revenue. In fact, ad revenue was down 7%. They did see a little bit of an increase at Peacock, but no new subs, 41 million subs. That's not so great. Heck almighty, I'm starting to sound like Harry, aren't I? We're dealing with nearly 1 million here. And it's just little old Trish Regan right here talking to you live every day from no matter where she is in the world. Mike Kavanaugh, Comcast president, pointed out how Love Island was doing so well and that they've had these record-breaking numbers, and they're so excited about NBC Universal. They are so excited about NBC Universal. And then this was the quote. This was the quote of all quotes. Basically, after Versant is spun off. It's actually Versant, but I kind of like going with the French thing, right? Versant. It makes them sound a little more fancy schmancy, which is what they're all trying to be anyway. Well, guess what? They're going to be left with NBC broadcast, Bravo, Telemundo, as well as Peacock, which he says are completely symbiotic, leveraging the strengths of the entertainment business, which is both scripted and reality entertainment, as well as sports and news. Oh, except that in terms of news, guess who's not there? One kind of big news person, or somebody that they used to tout as big news person, and that would be one Rachel Maddow. But Rachel, she's been worried about losing her job for a while, along with the ladies over the View, right? I mean, they've been talking about how Trump was going to get rid of them. Here's the reality, folks. Trump isn't getting rid of you. No. The industry is getting rid of you. And you know what? If you're not making money on The View, if you're not making money, Rachel Maddow, you're costing them plenty, $25 million reportedly a year, then guess what's going to happen? They're going to actually cut the cord, so to speak, right? You're going to lose your job. I do believe that this is something that happened to what our little friend over at CBS, the guy that had the comedic show that wasn't so comedic, right? I mean, Stephen Colbert lost his gig Not just because he was, annoying and politically annoying, but because he was losing $30-40 million a year. And so they're going to try and blame Trump. But let me tell you, this has nothing to do with Trump and everything to do with them. When you are so overtly biased and yet try and pretend and gaslight people to think otherwise. Oh, no, we're the good journalists here. We're the ones that know what we're doing. We're the ones that da. No. You just lie. And it's catching up with you. I mean, it's really, really catching up with you. Let me show you how they're fretting over there. This was right before the election. Rachel Maddow, who's trying to twin with that other guy, what's his name, Chris Hayes? Get them confused sometimes. Anyway, she and Joy Behar are talking about how life is going to be H-E-double-L for journalists like them, except they're not journalists. After Trump comes in, watch.
So you said recently that you thought that you, as an outspoken critic, could be a target yourself. Some people think that sounds overdramatic, but I'm right there with you. I think that he is so vindictive that he will go after, however he has to, through the IRS maybe, or even through sponsors to get us off the air maybe, or you. Yeah. How seriously should we be taking that?
Well, so I was asked, am I worried about me? And my answer was, I'm worried about all of us. I'm no more worried about me than I am worried about everybody in the country. I think it's bad to have somebody saying, give me as much power as you can in this country so I can use it to go after other Americans. So I can use it to go after these subhuman internal enemies and I'll destroy them. Like, that's just not a good system for anybody. And I don't think anybody's safe if that's the sort of basis on which he wants to get more power.
Well, remember when Nixon had an enemies list? That was a proud moment for a lot of people if they were on the enemies list. Maybe we need to turn it around like that.
Well, I think that if he decides that he's going to go after you or me or anybody who's well known, we have resources. We'll likely be fine. But I think there's a pattern where he picks out individual people and effectively terrorizes them.
But
I mean, there's Stormy Daniels wearing a bulletproof vest to get into
it's ridiculous.
The courthouse, right?
Once you have political violence, you have fascism following that. So
it's like they don't even hear themselves, guys. I mean, it's like they literally have no clue how they sound. And all the garbage, frankly, that was fed to us. Let me just say, like, The View did its share. But Rachel is the one that created that crazy rabbit hole that she would take you down every single night if you actually watch that show every single night. I used to sometimes watch that because we had these what they call competition monitors when I was at Fox Business, and there was always like a screen up. She wasn't on, maybe she was on actually at the exact same time. No, forgive me. She was not on the exact same time as me. She was on after, and sometimes I'd catch parts of the show and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what is this about the right-wing conspiracy that everybody keeps talking about? Like, that is the conspiracy theorist right there. Like, she's living, breathing proof of it over there at MSNBC. And so I think finally now this is coming back, not because of Trump, but also not because of Trump. I mean, I don't think it helps that they've been caught sort of with their pants down. I mean, having to pay out millions and millions and millions of dollars in libel suits. That doesn't help. But really what's going on is that the industry has changed so much and it has become so fractured because you have the opportunity to actually find truth and find real commentators that don't work off of prompters, thank you very much, that are speaking extemporaneously and that have more transparency in their product, i.e., again, me, remember, subscribe, share, like. So this is a very different world, if you would, that we're living in right now. And hallelujah that we've got a chance to do this. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett may be living in a very different world in the very near future. Jasmine Crockett preparing to be kicked out of Congress. You see, there's some fireworks going on down there in the Lone Star State. This is the letter that Greg Abbott sent. He's kind of ticked off because, they're supposed to vote on some of these redistricting issues. And instead of actually voting, what did these guys do? They actually decided to take off for a whole other state. They just decided to leave and that they decided they would just be, absent. Well, gee, that really works, right? You're not going to participate in the vote because it's take my ball and go home kind of thing. They don't like the fact that there is some redistricting efforts going on. She's calling it a power grab. She says you're trying to silence voters. It's really fascinating to me because I will say this. It's fascinating in that whenever it is the Republicans that are trying to make any changes to the rules it becomes, shall we say, a power grab. It's racist. It's this, that, everything you can imagine. Versus when it's the other way around. Think about it. When it's the other way around, and you actually have the libs out there trying to change things as they are. Keep in mind, as they are, ladies and gentlemen, in California right now, then this becomes kind of, well, I'll let Hakeem say it. Hakeem Jeffries say it. Suddenly, when it's California getting redistricts, and there's a chance that maybe Republicans, or forgive me, Texas being redistricted, and there's a chance Republicans might succeed from it, it's somehow really, really bad. We do have this sound, but I want to play this for you before we go on to Jasmine. Here we are. Hakeem Jeffries.
We have to make clear to the people of Texas what's taking place, because it's unacceptable, unconscionable, and un-American. And as elected officials, we have that responsibility. That's not something we can just brush aside. There are 50 states in America. I'm here in Texas for a reason, because these legislators are standing up. These members of Congress are standing up and communicating to the people of Texas what's occurring right now in the middle of the summer at a special session. And we will make clear that we're going to do everything possible to support the Texas legislators as they consider the best ways to push back. It's an all-hands-on-deck moment, and all options should be on the table to protect the people of Texas. But Texas Democrats are going to be the ones to decide that. We will fight them politically. We will fight them governmentally. We will fight them in court. We will fight them in terms of winning the hearts and minds of the people of Texas and beyond. The Texas Democrats are going to show up and stand up and speak up for what's right for the people of Texas. And they're showing courage and conviction and character.
Okay, except that they're not actually showing up. They're not actually showing up to help the people of Texas, because they're not even showing up to vote. I mean, this is what is driving Governor Abbott so crazy. So there's this new map, basically, that, well, keeps Jasmine out. So she would not be able to run in her district again. And she's pretty upset about it, as clearly Hakeem Jeffries is as well. Now, again, you flip the tables, and they'll lose it all day long. And yet here we are in this day, at this moment, listening to Jasmine go on about her address. Take a listen.
I know that this legislature did ask us as members of Congress to confirm our addresses. I don't know how many of us actually still reside in the districts that we represent. I do not currently reside in my district based upon the plan that has been drawn, which is another red flag, in addition to courts consistently looking at how many people have been moved.
How many people have been moved? Apparently, she's going to get moved. So Governor Abbott is, look, this is politics, folks, okay? Welcome to the real world. And this could actually mean that she's going to lose her current district, which means she's probably going to lose her seat. It had to happen sooner or later, right? It had to happen. Anyway, she's calling this a power grab to silence voters. It's a sham. She says it targets minority voices. She's arguing that it undermines fair representation, the whole kit and caboodle. But if you think about what she has an opportunity to do right now, it's to actually vote against this. But they're not doing this. Instead, they're actually leaving the state. They want to actually break quorum, as it's called, and prevent the Texas House from advancing this redistricting bill. And it's like, take my ball and go home kind of thing. Like, I'm just not gonna show up because I don't like what you guys are doing. And they've tried that before, actually, and it's really kind of a lousy thing to do, right? I'm sorry, you don't have the votes, and this is becoming an issue. And instead of actually staying and trying to work through this, your idea is that you're just going to leave, altogether leave. And that's in fact what they've done. So all the Democrats are leaving. And guess what? Abbott's like, listen, you guys are actually going to be out, period. Like, we're going to really, really be done with you. We're going to fine you too. you're going to be paid a lot of fine, and you're not going to be able to use any political money for those fines. So, Jasmine, we hope you have deep pockets. That's where we are right now. He's made it very clear that they're not to do this, and so we'll see how this works out in the coming hours. Actually, we'll probably learn more information tonight. I'm curious to see what you guys think about this, because it's really pretty bad that they just would get up and leave and have that be the solution, as opposed to coming in trying to work with people and vote on stuff. That is not the way to do things. But you know what? I'm not Jasmine Crockett. And Jasmine has her own, shall we say, way of doing things. Look, they're afraid of Trump in every way, shape, or form right now. And they figure if they can just stack the deck, and that's what they're talking about doing in California, they want to get 5 more seats. If they can stack the deck, they can then have a shot at impeaching him and stopping him from all the success that we started the show with, right? That Harry Enten was talking about, that he's got all of these legislative orders, he's got all of these executive orders that are going through. And by the way, the Supreme Court is actually confirming so many of them. So even though you have federal judges trying to like muck it up, you've got the Supreme Court saying, no, he has this authority. And so this terrifies Democrats, really terrifies them, as this one MSNBC contributor basically let on. They are freaked out by the amount of power Donald Trump now has. Because you see, when the people are with you and you hold the Oval Office and you got Congress and you got Senate, you got a lot of power for sure. Oh, and you get the Supreme Court. You get more conservatives than you have liberals on the Supreme Court. You got it all, baby, right? Listen to her.
They see all this power that President Trump has amassed, and they're very shaken by it. And they're not also really understanding how not only did they lose, yes, it was a close election, but they lost every battleground state. And that's something that I think Democrats are still trying to wrap their heads around.
Trying. You lost it all, guys. You lost it all. And now, this time around, oh gosh darn it, you can't say what you said before. You know what they said before. I know what they said before. They went right back to the well, right? Why did they lose it before? Oh, it was Russian interference. That's why. Well, you can only try that so many times. And by the way, cat's out of the bag. You guys might be going down, like in history, and like really going down. Like we might actually be going down to Georgia, so to speak, right? Like you're going to the slammer for some of this stuff. I think I'm going to get to what Donald Trump's saying on this in just a moment. But remember, they don't have this narrative anymore.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
The president-elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do. We have a precedent.
Okay, so you know the drill. They did this over and over and over again. And so they don't have that to fall back on this time. So yeah, they're kind of freaked out that he's got a lot of power, but they gave it to him. And gosh darn it, they're going to still give it to him. Oh, I got a great soundbite. I got to play you a little bit later on of J.D. Vance talking about Sydney Sweeney. And he's like, listen, if you're going to jump all over Americans because they think she's kind of hot and she looks good in a pair of jeans, and you're going to accuse them of being racist or God knows what else, even worse, because of that, you keep doing that, guys. We're going to keep winning elections, all right? We're going to win them all day long, and that's what's happening. Meanwhile, they are in trouble. They are in trouble. Hillary Clinton is in real trouble. I mean, serious trouble. I'm going to get to that in a second. But first, a little shout out for one of our sponsors here on the show, Balance in Nature. We love our friends at Balance in Nature. They've been great. And I just have to say, it is wonderful to have such terrific sponsors like Balance in Nature. I'm just going to say that because I come on here every day and this show is totally for free. And I love that it can be for free. I mean, it's a special bond that we've been able to build together. And look, we're building a channel. I'm able to build a business. And so just a very special shout out to these guys because they have helped to make all this possible. Really and truly. And they've got great stuff. Great stuff. So I'm a big believer in taking your vitamins and drinking enough water and exercising, all of these things, eating right. But I get it. It's not easy, especially right now. Like I'm traveling. It's not always easy to eat as well as I'd like. It's easier in Europe, although I will give, I'll give RFK Jr. a lot of credit. Hopefully it's going to get easier to eat well in the USA as well. But I would say that this is a big part, for me anyway, of healthy living. Balance in Nature. They have a lot of things on their website. Go check it out. You get 35% off with code word Trish, Trish, and you can call them directly, 1-800-2468-75-1. It's 1-800-2468-75-1. Use that code word Trish. It helps me. It helps the show. You're helping yourself. You get the 35% off, plus you get the free shipping, plus you get money back guarantee. So if you don't like it, no harm, no foul. Okay, we got to get to what Donald Trump is doing on one Hillary Clinton. This is incredible. Trump is not kidding this time around, okay? Trump is not kidding, and this is a whole different ballgame, shall we say. This is a different kind of administration. He's coming in eyes wide open. He knows what happened before. I've talked to him about what happened before. You had a chance with Hillary. Why didn't you take it? And you know what? He said something that I thought was really noble. He said to me, and by the way, he said this to other people, and he actually mentions it in the interview clip I want to show you, but he said directly to me, he's like, look, she was the wife of a president. I ran against her. I just didn't think it was a good thing to do. It felt kind of, banana republic. Like that's what they do in other countries. It's not what we do here in the U.S. And so he opted not to take that opportunity. There was no sort of revenge that he wanted. He's not a vengeful guy. He actually just wanted to do what he could to get the economy right and do this, that, and the other. But they turned on him immediately from day one. And they tried to undermine, frankly, the will of the American people by not allowing him to succeed. He succeeded anyway. I mean, you looked at the best rise in median wages that we had seen up until March 2020 of any administration, going all the way back to JFK. So there were a lot of things that were very good that he did, but that was all in spite of them and in spite of the situation that they were presenting. And so now he's like, okay, you know what? The gloves are off. I'm back second time around. So listen to what he says in this Newsmax clip. I think this was with Finnerty. Let's listen in and hear what Trump is saying, because Hillary, you're on notice.
New emails, Mr. President, suggest essentially that Hillary Clinton personally approved the Russia hoax.
With Obama.
With Barack Obama. And my question is she finally going to pay for what she did, or does she get a pass again?
So, we had her, and I had her right under the sights, and I told the people, look, you can't do this to a president's wife, an ex-president, and she was Secretary of State, right. But you can't do this to the wife of a president. And
do you still feel that way?
Well, I'll tell you how I feel about it in a second. If you remember, I was at a rally, and it was after the election, and they said, lock her up, and I said, no, look, we won, just relax. And I didn't do what other people would have done, what they would have done. And then they went after me, and they meant it. I said, it's amazing. I always felt that you shouldn't be doing this stuff, and I let Hillary off the hook. I totally left her off the hook. And then I let her off the hook for what? And then I come in, and they did the same thing to me. The difference is they actually meant it. And they hurt a lot of people, and it was all a hoax. And now they have it in black and white. No, I think they should pay a price.
How directly?
By the way, it's a very big price. It could be the biggest scandal in the history of our country, but it continues onward. And that continues onward. That scandal has continued from the beginning. They have everything they do is a hoax. They're no good at anything other than some forms of nasty politics.
So it does seem to me he's putting Hillary Clinton on notice. That was pretty clear. He said they should pay a price. He wants them to pay a price. So he's demanding this accountability, including from the likes of Hillary Clinton. This is him the other day saying the Russia hoax is totally undisputed. The facts are in there. It's black and white. It's the biggest scandal in American history. The perpetrators of this crime must pay a big price. This can never be allowed to happen in the country again. He put these out on social media. So he's been very active on this. And then, of course, you heard what he said to Newsmax. So he's demanding some accountability, right? He wants some accountability. And it's important, frankly, for America that we get that accountability. Reminder, subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff, because it's very important. We need to be able to continue having a voice here so that you're able to demand, frankly, accountability too. It's all about transparency and knowing what's going on. I want to go to Kash Patel. Some of you saw this the other day. He actually recently was talking about those burn bags, some things that he's found in FBI headquarters, something that Tulsi's taking very seriously. And if you think about this, and I'm going to show you something else, a little preview of it, Radcliffe over at the CIA saying we're going to unclassify more stuff. Listen, this is not going to be good for these guys.
Me, as the director of the FBI, the former Russiagate guy, when I first got to the Bureau, found a room that Comey and others hid from the world in the Hoover Building, full of documents and computer hard drives that no one had ever seen or heard of. Locked the key and hid access and just said, no one's ever going to find this place.
What?
Yeah. So my guys are going through that right now.
What's in there?
A lot of stuff. I mean, that's the thing. People are like, well, okay, go arrest him. And I'm like, okay, well, how about you let me run a methodical investigation?
So at this point, it does sound like there's going to be some accountability, right? So he's got these quote unquote burn bags. They are saying they're going to release more intelligence. And some of the things that have come up is the question of whether or not there's a statute of limitations that would come into effect. And I want to show you a clip from a guy who's very, very smart, right? He's big advisor to the president, Stephen Miller, former attorney, and very, very sort of skilled on a lot of these legal issues. It's one of the reasons why they're having the success that they're having right now. I want you to hear what he has to say about statute of limitations. I would be very nervous right now if I were Brennan, Comey, Hillary, the whole kit and caboodle of them, all of them are in jeopardy.
Hour and the moment for accountability so that we can reclaim this democracy, Maria.
Well, do you believe we will actually get accountability? We've been demanding accountability now for a decade. Our audience is well aware that this is the biggest political scandal we have ever seen, and an effort to undermine and take down a duly elected president. But now we want to see the tricksters face the consequences. Will they?
I have complete confidence in the Department of Justice to follow these facts, to follow this new, further avalanche of evidence, and to take all the necessary legal steps to ensure that the wrongdoers, the coup plotters, the schemers, and the insurrectionists are held fully accountable under the laws and Constitution of these United States. Yes, Maria, I believe that.
Now, last weekend, John Radcliffe, CIA director who is a former prosecutor, former DNI, told us that the statute of limitations, the 5-year statute, does not apply when it comes to conspiracy. And he says the conspiracy is ongoing because they still won't admit it. The conspiracy is still happening. So what is your take on what Radcliffe told us last week?
Oh, he's completely right. So several of the statutes I mentioned, we have not even come close to eclipsing the statute of limitations. But more than that, it is an ongoing and continuing conspiracy. It continued through the entirety of President Trump's first term. It continued through the entirety of President Biden's term in office. And it continues to this day. There are still deep state coup plotters who are trying to conceal and hide this information on behalf of the people they are protecting. There are still staffers in Democrat offices who know the full truth, who are concealing that truth. So all of this behavior, all of this conduct collectively means the conspiracy hasn't ended, is ongoing. Comey in particular has throughout the years engaged in conduct and lies, public statements, and testimony in front of Congress. False testimony whose sole purpose was to perpetuate and continue the conspiracy. So I have every hope and expectation that the Department of Justice, under the leadership of our courageous Attorney General, will follow these facts and follow the evidence and deliver justice. Because if we have a country where we can continue to have FBI careerists and CIA careerists, deep staters who will fabricate and doctor evidence, who will create and produce fake material, fabricated material, phony information to try to go after their political enemies up to and including the president. If we continue to create the impression and the reality that there is not a severe criminal penalty for such conduct, it will never stop. It will never desist. It will keep on going forever. And we will continue to have a country that is sabotaged endlessly by the production of fake documents, fake material, fake plots against democratically elected officials. We can't have that. There must be consequences.
Well, I mean, it's just extraordinary to me that the mainstream media has...
Miller really calling it out there on Maria. She's terrific. I worked with her at both CNBC and Fox, and she's a good egg, and she's been all over this story as well for now. I mean, we're going on 10 years, for goodness sakes, guys. I mean, I can't believe that we're still talking about this, right? And you may feel that way too, and that's why I'm saying, like, they've got to have something in terms of accountability. As far as the statute of limitations, it's a very interesting take. In other words, they're saying because it's been ongoing, because it hasn't changed, because they've continued to spin the same stupid narrative over and over and over again. You know, quite recently in the run-up to this election, that statute of limitations is not over. And so as a result, yeah, you're probably going to see indictments. Radcliffe making that clear, as Maria pointed out just a weekend before, saying that the indictments of even Hillary Clinton could be coming forth soon. So that's important to think about and to keep an eye on. And I would guess just from, you know, the perspective of what's right for the American people and making sure that something like that does not happen again, that's where you want that accountability, if you would. Another sort of story I wanted to bring to you at this moment was the director of the CIA, forgive me, speaking about whether or not there was more information to come, right? You know about the burn bags. Kash Patel is like, I got a whole room full of burn bags. Apparently, somebody didn't actually follow through and burn these. Like, normally they'd be gone, right? You think about Born Identity or something, and it all just goes disappearing. That didn't happen. There was some kind of whistleblower, somebody who actually wanted to hang on to some of this stuff, so they do have their hands on it. And so now the question is more going to come out? I mean, some of it already came out. We had Putin's dirt on Clinton, for goodness sakes, page 17 that was released the other day. Oh, this is the biggie. Internal claims that Hillary was on heavy tranquilizers and suffering from intensified psycho-emotional problems. Well, now you tell us, huh? Putin apparently had the goods on her and didn't actually use it the way you would have thought someone like Putin would have used it. So now Trey Gowdy interviewed Radcliffe, and just listen to this. Again, Hillary, Comey, Brennan, Obama. I know I'm missing about 10 of you, but listen up.
Is there more to come from either you or FBI Director Patel? Are there more shoes to drop that we should be looking for?
Yeah, there are, Trey. So, people need to understand that, there is no Russia collusion hoax file cabinet at the FBI or at the CIA. We have to look for these documents, sometimes that are well hidden. You have to go trace through emails and look for signs and clues that would point you to. That's how I found John Brennan's notes, and that's how we found additional documents. I've talked with FBI Director Patel. He and I will be declassifying additional documents that show just how sinister the FBI was in amplifying Hillary Clinton's Steele dossier as real and credible to be included in the intelligence community assessment, but also in how they buried the counterintelligence referral memo that I mentioned before, how they went to great lengths to try and keep that out of the intelligence community assessment. So there will be more to come, and I think that people should expect that the Trump administration will continue to shed transparency and light and truth, again, because, Trey, there is no question, this was the greatest political scandal of our lifetime. No one wants to see this happen again. It derailed our country. It derailed President Trump's presidency, his first 4 years in office. And it really is a stain on our country that should never happen again. And Donald Trump is committed to making sure that it doesn't.
Yeah, and again, he didn't want to have to do this, guys. He made it really clear he did not want to go after anyone. But you know what? You did it. You did it. You tried to bankrupt the guy. You tried to throw him behind bars. I mean, one thing after another, for goodness sakes. They kept going and going and going. Little Energizer bunnies that could, right? They kept coming back empty-handed. And then the cherry on top being that the American people elected him, and they elected him big time. Not just, we thought, okay, maybe he's going to win the Electoral College. He won the popular vote too. And so he's got the wind at his back, as we like to say here in Ireland, as my Irish grandmother used to say. It's just fascinating. And the Trump phenomena is fascinating. And you know who's figuring this out? American Eagle. The stock price was like soaring today. This is soaring after Donald Trump came out and said this. Take a peek. Let me get this shot up for you if I could. This is on his Truth Social, and he's talking about Sydney Sweeney, the beautiful actress, right? A registered Republican, it turns out, in the state of Florida. Go Florida, go Sydney. All right, so she's a Republican, and she had this ad out there, and apparently the jeans are flying off the shelves. I told you, one of my friends, who's not even their demo, like she's my age, she doesn't have teenage girls or anything. She ran out and bought 2 pair. She's like, I'm going to wear American Eagle jeans. Anyway, they're flying off the shelves. He's like, go get them, Sydney. On the other side of the ledger, you have Jaguar that did that stupid and seriously woke advertisement. I told you guys about that. It was so dumb. It was such a disaster. The CEO of that company just resigned. He points out the company's in turmoil. I mean, they should have taken a lesson, he said, from Bud Light. Exactly. Didn't I say that the other day? You'd think they could have figured out, you don't want to destroy your core customer. They just don't get it. They just don't get it over at Jaguar, for sure. And, Bud Light, obviously, eventually they got it, but they still haven't recovered, shall we say, in terms of sales. They just came out with numbers the other day. Sales are down. So they effectively kind of destroyed that company. He's pointing that out. Billions of dollars were lost. The market cap went down. It's all kind of sad, right? Because it's famous American beer. And it just shows you, what can be done. Anyway, the great part about this is hilarious to me. So no sooner did Donald Trump actually send this stuff out that all of a sudden I'm looking and the headlines start changing. And this is what I predicted. Did I not last week? I said to you guys, look, I'm not a believer in meme stocks. I think you got to be really, really cautious and careful, because I invest a lot. 76research.com being my company, and we look at a lot of these things. But it was funny nonetheless. I was like, man, this company is actually going to see some success as a result of this Sydney Sweeney thing. If nothing else, they're going to become a meme stock. And what happened? Boom. Let me show you the headline. Here we go. In the Wall Street Journal. This coming out today after the president sent that out on Truth Social. American Eagle shares climb after Trump praises Sydney Sweeney ad. And boy, did they climb. Take a look at that one. And then you have another over here on CNBC. Yep. Shares of American Eagle surge after Trump calls Sydney Sweeney campaign the hottest ad out there. So, I think that this, how do we say, they got some bang for their buck, right? Like some real mileage out of this one. And there's also, dare I say, a political component to it, right? Because listen to what J.D. Vance is saying about how, these people, they're going to go around and say, oh, you're racist if you like this ad because there's a hot girl in it. You keep doing that. You keep doing that. We'll take that all day long because you clearly just don't understand people. Suddenly, you can't be blonde and blue-eyed in America anymore. Give me a break.
Yeah, my political advice to the Democrats is continue to tell everybody who thinks Sydney Sweeney is attractive is that appears to be their actual strategy. I mean, it actually reveals something pretty interesting about the Dems, though, which is that you have a normal all-American beautiful girl doing a normal jeans ad, right? They're trying to sell jeans to kids in America, and they have managed to so unhinge themselves over this thing. And it's like, you guys, did you learn nothing from the November 2024 election?
Nothing.
I actually thought that one of the lessons they might take is we're going to be less crazy. The lesson they have apparently taken is we're going to attack people as Nazis for thinking Sydney Sweeney is beautiful. Great strategy, guys. That's how you're going to win the midterms, especially young American men.
Their course correction lasted about 30 seconds.
That's right. Lasted 30 seconds. Somehow has gotten even crazier. But again, it's just so much of the Democrats is oriented around hostility to basic American life. So you have a pretty girl doing a jeans ad.
My gosh. I will say, it's true. They learned nothing. Absolutely, positively nothing. And they're just going to keep on making the same darn mistakes over and over. But you know what? That's good. That's good for us, guys. That's actually really, really, really good for us. I mean, you look at what's happening in the markets. We've got markets that are higher. They're soaring on that 3% jump in GDP, plus the EU trade deal that just went through, plus more trade deals that keep happening. I mean, it's like he's on fire, right? So he's seen all the success, so much success that he's even talking about giving back a rebate maybe to taxpayers. Imagine, you might actually get something back. I don't know how much to put in stock here on this one, but he did say this. It's worth listening to again.
Do you think there's the possibility of a rebate to the American public in terms of all of that money?
We're thinking about that, actually. We have so much money coming in. We're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. But we're thinking about a rebate. That's a very good question. You just made a lot of news. We're thinking about a rebate because we have so much money coming in from tariffs that a little rebate for people of a certain income level might be very nice.
Okay, wow. So we might actually get a rebate. Think about that. That would be kind of incredible. I mean, again, we'll see what happens. He did say, look, buddy, you just made some news. That was a really good question. We might actually see something like that. A reminder, of course, there's so much optimism out there. We've got a market that's on fire today. I want you, if you haven't, we got to get to Texas again momentarily, but please make sure that you go over to 76 Research. This is my company that I started with my good friend Rob, and we just have so many good ideas for you. And I want you to be able to partake in all the success that we're seeing in this market right now. So go over to 76research.com. You can sign up. It is, gosh, guys, it's just $1 a month, okay, for the first 2 months, and it goes to $9.95 thereafter. But I think it's well worth doing in light of this. You don't want to miss out, and we do have, dare I say, very good ideas for you. Anyway, Jasmine Crockett, as I told you earlier in the program, is about to be kicked out of Congress. This situation just heated up big time because I told you that Governor Abbott had put her on warning, right? He was like, you can't just leave in the middle of a vote. You can't just, adjourn without having a quorum. Texas House Speaker Justin Burrows had announced that the quorum is not present. Just moments ago, this happened. And so, you've got the State House convening without many Democrats. They all took off because they don't want to have to vote on this redistricting of the state's congressional map because they know they're not going to succeed on that front. Jasmine Crockett worrying about this recently the other day. Listen again to her.
But I know that this legislature did ask us as members of Congress to confirm our addresses. I don't know how many of us actually still reside in the districts that we represent. I do not currently reside in my district based upon the plan that has been drawn, which is another red flag, in addition to courts consistently looking at how many people have been moved.
How many people have been moved? Okay, well, here's the deal. You can't just take off and try and fight it that way. And that's been made very, very clear to you, Jasmine Crockett, and to some of your cronies. I realize, Hakeem Jeffries is all worked up. He's accusing them of gerrymandering and, this is not right and we're going to have them at our backs, etc. But consider what Governor Abbott said. He was like, you can't just take off and leave the state and not show up for your job. And if you do, guess what? You might just lose your job. So there's some consequences that could be coming for some of these absent lawmakers that decided to just flee town. I mean, for sure now, they're at risk of being in violation of not doing their gig, right? Because he's saying this is abandonment. This is forfeiture of an elected state office. This was his warning to them. They had until this afternoon to show up and be there. And guess what? They totally blew it off. They blew him off. And as a result, let me read a little part of this to you. I mean, this is just incredible, guys. I'm telling you, Jasmine Crockett is going to be out of a gig one way or another. The woman who called him Hot Wheels, remember, referring to the fact that he actually does have a disability. All these people that care so much about disability, and yet she's out there calling them Hot Wheels. So they're saying, listen, that this is basically an effort to stop bills from happening, and you can't do that. In other words, the legislature has to meet, and it's actually in the law, and thus it's, quote, it's not optional, he writes to them, it's a duty. The absconded Democrat House members were elected to meet and vote on legislation. This is all in the letter. not to prevent votes that may not go their way. Every session, legislators meet and vote on legislation, and this is what they do, right? And you come to some kind of agreement. If you're not in agreement, then you work it out, you hash it out, but you can't just actually leave and then say, oh, well, we don't have enough people, and thus we're not actually going to vote on stuff. This is an effort to prevent votes that may not go their way, to prevent votes that they're going to lose on. And so he wrote to them, "The truancy ends now. The derelict Democrat House members must return to Texas and be in attendance when the House reconvenes at 3 p.m. Monday, August 4th, 2025. For any member who fails to do so, I will invoke Texas Attorney General Opinion Number KPP 0382 to remove the missing Democrats from the membership in the Texas House." Wow. Okay. Jasmine's going to be out of a job. Now, like I said, she was probably going to be out of a job either way you sliced it, because she probably wasn't going to get elected again, and she knew that, and she was upset. But in this particular case, she's definitely at risk. I assume this is going to go up the food chain as well. I mean, the poor Supreme Court, they've never had to work so hard because somebody's going to take issue with this. But he's like, hey, you're not showing up. And it's right there in the law that you actually have to show up. You can't just leave every time you guys don't like the way things are going. And so Jasmine is now going to be in big, major trouble. And here's how they're fighting back. Already we heard earlier from Hakeem Jeffries about how this was so unfair. It's funny because when it's Republicans doing it, it's unfair, and it's this, that, and the other. And then if it's Democrats doing it, as they're trying to do in California, it's totally legit, right? It's all in the name of diversity, etc. Anyway, a quick listen to Hakeem.
We have to make clear to the people of Texas what's taking place, because it's unacceptable, unconscionable, and un-American. And as elected officials, we have that responsibility. That's not something we can just brush aside. There are 50 states in America. I'm here in Texas for a reason, because these legislators are standing up.
Okay, I'm sorry, but Hakeem, you do have a responsibility, and part of the responsibility is making sure that Jasmine shows up to the office on time, okay? She can't just blow it off along with every other Democrat because they don't like the way things are going. If they have a problem with the redistricting, that's their opportunity to go there and fight it out, as opposed to just leaving. And that's what they did. They just left. It's not going to fly. So right now, as far as Texas is concerned, she's lost her seat. We'll see where this goes, shall we say, tomorrow. But I'm telling you, things are happening. They are really, really, really happening. And don't take my word for it. Heck, we got CNN saying it.
The Donald Trump administration is arguably the most influential this century, and probably as well dating back a good portion of the last century as well. Love it, like it, lump it. Trump is remaking the United States of America. Let's talk about tariffs first, right? There's all this talk that Donald Trump always chickens out when it comes to tariffs. No tacos for Trump. The effective tariff rate, get this, it's 18%, the highest since the FDR administration in the 1930s, up from, get this, just 2% last year. From just 2% last year, we're talking about a level, an effective tariff rate level, get this, 9 times as high this year than last year. But it's not just on tariffs, which of course Donald Trump ran on, in which you're seeing a tremendously influential presidency. What about immigration? Of course, Trump ran and has always run on a very hawkish immigration platform. Get this, 2025 net migration in the United States down at least 60% from last year. In fact, we may be heading for the first time in at least 50 years in which we have net negative migration into the United States. And last year, of course, in 2024, the net migration in the U.S. was 2.8 million. This year, we might be talking about negative net migration. My goodness gracious. Now, of course, this is part of a larger story, as I was mentioning. We're talking about immigration, net migration. We're talking about the effective tariff rate. But get this, how is Donald Trump doing it? Well, he is signing a ton of executive orders. Get this, 180, the most in a year since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Oh my goodness, you have to go back to the first half of the 20th century, the last century, and to make a comparison, Joe Biden signed, get this, just 77 during his entire first year, and we're only a little bit in August so far, and Donald Trump making history with 180 executive orders signed so far this year. So that's why I said that in my mind, Donald Trump is the most influential president of this century and probably dating back a good portion of the last century. That is because he is remaking the country in terms of tariffs. He is remaking the country in terms of net migration, and he is remaking the country in terms of how much policy changes he's putting through in executive orders. As I said, it truly is history making. Love it, like it, or lump it.
History making, right? We're on the front lines of history here together every single day. It's incredible, all that's happening. Please make sure you subscribe, make a comment, let me know what you think. Do you think he's going to be the most influential president of... I'm going to go all the way back to FDR. I'm with Harry on that one. I really am. Things are happening, guys. Things are happening, and it's great to be able to see this all here live together. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to be live again with you tomorrow. We got much more coming your way. See you then.